Former White House press secretary Karine Jean-Pierre did one of the most remarkable things this week. In a feat never before accomplished, she managed to release both a career-ending book, sit down for a career-ending interview, all while already having had a career-ending implosion at the end of her former career. How someone can manage to ruin their reputation in so many unique and interesting ways is unprecedented. And the fact that she was able to do all of this while being a black queer woman of color who is also black and also queer and also a woman of color is doubly, maybe even triply impressive. I find it strangely empowering. I know I'm inspired to fail harder than I've ever failed before. I'm Tyler Chrestman. Welcome to the Chrestman Conversation. Okay, hello. Welcome, everybody. We have three topics that we're going to be discussing today. We are going to be talking about Karine Jean-Pierre just getting absolutely roasted on the internet, which is a lot of fun. We're going to talk about the construction project happening at the White House, the future ballroom in the East Wing, and we're going to talk about SNAP benefits being frozen come November 1st. But before we get into any of that, my favorite comment from last week comes from my man Ludolf, who said, quote, Cuomo's roast was beautiful. I've seen some business podcasts saying that they hope New York votes Mondani in just so people can see the destruction that socialism will cause. Might be a necessary evil, end quote. And Ludolf, I can't help but partly agree with you. I know that recently Ben Shapiro on his show has taken to quoting H.L. Mencken, and who said that democracy is the theory that the common people know what they want and they deserve to get it good and hard. And I think that quote is entirely accurate. If the people of New York want to vote for a socialist who's going to help bankrupt the city, all power to them. Hey, that's what we live in, a democratic republic for a reason. And if you want to vote that in, have at it. I think that it might be a good thing for the rest of the country, and I also think it would be a terrible thing for the Democrats, because if New York elects this guy, he's going to wind up like AOC. He's just going to be the poster boy for the Democrat Party, and they have to own him because so many Democrats are afraid to condemn this guy and his terrible ideas that he's just going to be an anchor tied around them. So if that's what New York wants, hey, have at it. I don't live there for a reason. Anyway, thank you, Ludolf, for the comment. Now, let's get in. These topics, I've told you before kind of how the bullet point system here works for my outline, where I basically just have a bullet point. A couple things I want to say, normally 2 or 3 words that just remind me of things that I want to talk about. And then sometimes I'll have data where I pull up big quotes or anything in these bullet points. And typically it's like 2 pages for a show. I've got about 3 pages today of stuff. So really, I'm going to try and be rather quick with these topics. I might, who knows? You know how I get. I get a little ranty sometimes. But I'm going to try not to because I want to try and talk about all 3 of these things. So let's get into topic 1. Karine, we hardly knew you. Who is Karine Jean-Pierre? Well, many of you don't know. She was the very dishonest, very terrible press secretary for Joe Biden. I feel like that's as objective as I can get. She was bad at her job. She was a really bad press secretary. People loved her. I couldn't stand her. I thought that she was ridiculous. She was very dishonest. She was not good at her job. And honestly, you don't need to believe me. You don't need to take my word for this when I say she wasn't good at her job, because thankfully, our friends over at Axios, they've done all this for us. I want you to look at a couple things here. I'm going to read them, so you don't have to read if you don't want to. I know that's hard for some people. So this is some reporting that was put out by Axios, where these are people who used to work in the White House, used to work for Jean-Pierre, and these are some quotes. So this one is from a White House official, and this is a quote from that official. It said, quote, Jean-Pierre was one of the most ineffectual and unprepared people I've ever worked with. She had meltdowns after any interview that asked about a topic not sent over by producers. More quotes. She didn't know how to manage a team, didn't know how to shape or deliver a message, and often created more problems than she solved. The hubris of thinking you can position yourself as an outsider when you not only have enjoyed the perks of extreme proximity to power, which bestows the name recognition needed to sell books off your name, but have actively wielded it from the biggest pulpit there is breathtaking as it is desperate. It's difficult to see how this is anything but a bizarre cash grab. That last one's about her new book that just came out. Oh my gosh, what else do they have to say about her? The amount of time that was spent coddling Jean-Pierre and appeasing her was astronomical compared to our attention on actual matters of substance. Oof. Today, Karine lost not only her excuse me, Not only her constituency that ever supported her, party line Democrats. Jean-Pierre did not respond, blah, 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 blah. There was one more in here, I thought. Lost the only constituency that ever supported her, party line Democrats. Oh, so this is about the book that she released. So she talked about why she's leaving the Democratic Party. And they're saying the only people who liked her at all were party line Democrats, and now they don't. So it's not just my word. Take these White House officials who worked with Jean-Pierre. She's terrible. She was bad at her job, and now she has released a book, and she's been doing this interview circuit about the book. I'll be honest, I haven't read the book, but I'm imagining here. I'm just going to use my imagination. I imagine, based on what I've read about the book, not the book itself, but based on what I've read about the book, that if I were to take out every mention of her identity as a black queer woman, I could probably read it while my bagel bites were in the toaster, okay? This is not a long book. Apparently, it's like every page has to be introduced with her identity, which, by the way, is kind of how she got her job in the first place. She was not very good at it, but they couldn't fire her. Again, don't take my word for it. How about we look at the Washington Post? You know, the Republican stronghold that is the Washington Post. How about we read their review of the book? Check this out. We got this highlighted here. So, indeed, these are highlight quotes from the review from the Washington Post. Hold on. Excuse me. Is this the first page or the second page? This is the second page. Here we go. Okay. So this is by Becca Rothfield. I don't know anything about Becca Rothfield. I'm just going to guess here. She writes for the Washington Post. My guess is she's not a conservative. This is what she had to say about Jean-Pierre's new book. Because of these are quotes from the article. Because of the single, sensible, a very belated thing that they have done in recent memory, which is to usher a doddering Joe Biden out of the 2024 presidential race. Indeed, at no point in Independent does she articulate a serious critique of Democratic policies. Instead, in an unsubtle attempt to elevate her gripes to the status of a more principled objection. So basically they're saying she's claiming she left the Democratic Party because of ideological differences. She points out none in the book. She has no difference with the Democratic Party. She's just pretending this so that she can act as though she was behaving in a principled manner when it came to trying to, pull Joe Biden's corpse along to the finish line of that presidential race, when she can pretend that when they kicked him out of power, it was some sort of anti-democratic process. She has no differences with the Democratic Party. More quotes. It is hard to take these exhortations seriously when Jean-Pierre's own thinking remains so decidedly in the box, and when her version of an in-touch leadership is an 80-something darling of the establishment who can't make it through a debate after 9 p.m. Harris was Biden's logical successor. She was clearly next in line, and by bypassing her, it would have been disrespectful to black women overall. That's Jean-Pierre's thinking in the book, where she never actually comes down on this question of it. Was it the right thing to do? She plays both sides of the fence about such an obvious question, which is, should there have been a primary? Should Kamala Harris have been the next in line for the Democratic nomination to the presidency? How about this one? This is from the article. I wish I were more surprised to learn that a Biden administration insider strongly supported a candidate she didn't believe could win, in keeping with the Democrats' favored tactic of prioritizing politeness over victory. So this is the reviewer saying that Jean-Pierre knew that, admits so in the book, she never thought Kamala Harris could win. But she supported her anyway because that's what the Democrat Party wanted, and because it would have been disrespectful to black women to push her to the side. No one wanted Kamala Harris in there, but they couldn't do it because it was disrespectful to black women. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. But that's Jean-Pierre for you. She has no original ideas. She has no incredible way of thinking. And the internet has just been roasting this lady. And it's amazing. It's unbelievable to me how bad she has done. Because she sat down to promote this book. This is the other part that spurred this. No one's going to read this book. No one cares what she has to say. She's not a deep thinker. No one cares. The only people who are going to read this are the people like this lady from the Washington Post who have to review the book for work. Nobody's going to buy this book. No one cares what Jean-Pierre has to say. So she sat down, Jean-Pierre, sat down to promote the book with an interviewer from the New Yorker, and it's hilarious. I don't know what she did to piss this man off, but he was so petty. When you're doing an interview, when you're interviewing people and you're doing it in a written form, so you're doing it for a magazine, let's just pretend. I ask you a question. I say, hey, what's your favorite color? And you sit there and you go, I'd say blue. If I'm an interviewer and I'm being nice, when I write the interview, I go, hey, what's your favorite color? And then I say your answer, blue. That's the nice way to do an interview. The mean way to do an interview, the petty way to do an interview is to include the ums and the buts because it just makes people look silly. A lot of people have tics when they speak. They say they use those filler words like all the things as like this. And that's fine. Petty interviewers include that, or they include it if they're trying to make a point. This man in this interview, I got an excerpt here. He was doing the most. I want to show you some excerpts from this interview because it's so bad. This is what was going around that people were talking about. She has no coherent train of thought. She cannot defend her positions. I'm questioning whether or not she wrote the book. She doesn't seem to understand what's in there. So why don't we take a look at this? So he said, the interviewer says, why were they doing that? Referring to pushing Joe Biden out, undermining Joe Biden to push Kamala Harris. Why were they doing that? Jean-Pierre responded, because they believed Joe needed to step aside. There's more to this than that period of time. It's very layered. There's a period of time that I question what was happening and how do we treat our own? How do we treat people who are decent people? And then you have then you also have to think about how I'm thinking about this as a black woman who is part of the LGBTQ community and living in this time where I don't think Democrat leadership is protecting vulnerable people in the way that they should. The interviewer continues. The interviewer says, sorry, I'm not trying to be dense. I'm a little unclear about what this has to do with Democrat leaders or and many Democrats in the country thinking that Joe Biden was going to lose to Donald Trump, which was what the polls all showed, and therefore thinking that he should be replaced. Jean-Pierre continues. She says, okay, wait a minute. Hold on a second. Nobody knows anything. Nobody knows what would have happened. People also thought that if you replaced Joe Biden, we were going to win or have a better chance of winning. Millions of people who showed up in 2020 didn't show up in 2024. We can't forget that there was an incumbency issue as well. This is real. There were like several G10 countries with incumbents who did not get reelected. There was an incumbency issue as well. The interviewer, I'm not sure what you're saying. Jean-Pierre continues, no, wait a minute. You are saying that this was their thinking and that they were kind of predicting, but nobody knew what was going to happen. Nobody knew that Joe Biden was going to win in 2020. Nobody knew that was going to happen in 2024. People believed in their hearts that Kamala was going to win. They believed it. They saw the polling and they thought she was going to win. Looking at the polling, nobody knew anything. I'm only bringing up the polls because you brought up the polls to me. The interviewers continue. You said you were speaking as a black woman who's part of the LGBTQ community, and I think people were she cuts him off. I'm talking about this moment too. I do not feel seen in the party because I think they're throwing the LGBTQ community under the bus. They're not fighting enough for migrants and immigrants. You have to be a big tent party. You have to fight for everyone. The interviewer comes back. I'm still trying to understand. You argue that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. A lot of people thought Biden was not the best person to go up against Trump in the summer of 2024 after his debate with his approval ratings in the basement. Shouldn't those people have tried to give Democrats the best chance to replace Trump? You're talking about Biden like loyalty was owed to him. Isn't loyalty owed to the country? Jean-Pierre, no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying that this is not how you treat somebody. The interviewer continues. Is it a matter of how you treat someone or a matter of putting country first? She continues. Wait a minute. Treating someone with dignity is not the same as loyalty. I mean, the way he was treated, if you had seen something like that the Democratic Party, please point it out. This is how the interview goes the whole time. He's just saying, I don't understand what you're trying to tell me. And then she's not giving him an answer that he can print because he doesn't understand what she's trying to say. She goes on, you're telling me that the feelings of Joe Biden, blah, 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 blah. But Joe Biden is out of the picture. He's out of the picture. And we lost. And then he said, this is about what you wrote in your book. I'm not bringing this up randomly. She continues. No, I know. But you just said to me, right? So I'm just responding to it. He's out of the picture. He stepped down. He's out of the picture and we lost. The book for me is really about the moment we're in. When I talk about a broken White House in the subtitle, I'm talking about the Trump White House. So what are the Democrat leaders doing to beat back and fight back? What are they doing? Anyway, not a good interview. By the way, this is just pages of this. It's terrible. She does not articulate her points well. She doesn't defend her position. She can't explain why she supported Joe Biden over Kamala Harris and why she then went on to support Kamala Harris when she said that she knew Kamala Harris couldn't win. She didn't explain why Joe Biden stayed in the race. She did. She defended that decision in the interview where she said, he had one bad night. I've seen him. He was great. Most of the time I interacted with him. He was awesome, and he was great. He could have done the job. And the interviewer said, do you think he could have done the job till 2028? And she goes, let's talk about something else. It's ridiculous. Obviously, the internet, it remains undefeated. Just some of the comments about this are just unbelievable. Again, the Washington Post, giving a scathing review of your book as a liberal Democrat who worked for Joe Biden, not a good sign at all. Not a good sign at all. And again, no one's going to read this book, so it doesn't really matter, and she shouldn't be important, so we can just bid her a fond farewell. But what this proves is something I've said all along. She was not a good hire, but the Biden administration did exactly what they're talking about with Kamala Harris. You put Kamala Harris in there. I'm not saying this is Joe Biden who said this. You put Kamala Harris in there because she was a black woman. Okay, fine. You want to pick a black woman? You're entitled to. I never would have said that out loud. I've said this before. You should say, we're going to pick the best person for the job, and then you pick the black woman. You don't say, I'm going to pick a black woman, because then everyone's just going to say, was she the best person for the job? Because you said you're going to pick a black woman. She seems kind of dumb. I don't know what to tell you. Jean-Pierre's the same way. They picked a black woman who's gay and an immigrant and blah, blah, blah. They could never fire her because of this. She was terrible at her job. Everyone in the White House seems to agree. She was bad at her job. She's not that bright. That is very clear. When she had the job, I was able to kind of write that off. I said, here she is. She's not very smart, but she's young. She's figuring it out. She got put in this position. She's not ready for it, and she's in over her head. I just learned this week. I had no idea. She's 51 years old. She's not young and inexperienced. She's just dumb. I had no idea. I really thought she was younger than me. I'll tell you what. Skincare game on point. She looks young. I had no idea she was 51. I really thought she was younger than me and just put in this position to fail. No, she's just not that bright. It comes across in the interview. I'm sure if I tried to read the book, it's probably ghostwritten, so I'm not even going to waste the time. But I'm sure she's not going to come across great because, unfortunately, even when you ghostwrite a book, you have to interact with the person to get an idea of what they think. And when you're dealing with a person who has muddled thinking, you're not going to write a clear book. So anyway, it's just funny to me. She can't explain any of her logic, any of her thinking. She doesn't have a good reason. That's why. She's trying to justify bad decisions. And when you try and justify bad decisions, you either come across like a liar or you come across as a fool. And so she's a little bit of both. Anyway, hopefully we can wish her, after this week, hopefully we can wish a ta-ta to Jean-Pierre. I think you're about done here. But as I was saying, not the best pick, but I don't want you to take my word for it. Because, again, as I've tried to show you here, I don't want you to just take my word for it. Listen to Axios. Listen to the White House officials. Listen to the Washington Post. You don't have to just listen to me when I say she's not that bright. Why don't you listen? How about CNN? Let's listen to what CNN has to say about her.
I saw her interview this morning in the New Yorker, if it came out today or yesterday. But what I think you're seeing and what Karen is attesting to is that she is quite incompetent to do the job, right? This is what Republicans have been saying for years now, is that she is just another evidence that DEI doesn't work, whether that's in the White House in your press secretary role, or whether that's an air traffic controller, an air pilot, whether that's your doctor. You want to hire the best for the role, not just based on skin color, Jake. Why did she get the job over John Kirby?
Well, why are we assuming that she, as a black LGBT, gay woman, is DEI, but a white woman who is behind the podium right now, which DEI initially started as affirmative action, which was about affirmatively hiring women and minorities? Why is one DEI and the other is not?
Why did she get the job over John Kirby? Because as everyone has said this week, she is woefully incompetent.
She had the job long before John Kirby.
I will just say she used to be.
I saw her.
So that was Katie Miller, who is Stephen Miller's wife. She says everything that I want to say, which is that this lady's incompetent. She shouldn't have had that job. She was bad at that job. They couldn't fire her. You back yourself in that corner. Because when you hire people who are bad at a job, you should fire them. But you can't if you basically say, well, we're going to hire someone who's black and gay and an immigrant, and then you paint yourself in this corner, because then if you fire them, that person's just going to say, racism, that's bad. All right, you know what? Because I'll tell you what, Jean-Pierre would do that. She absolutely would. And I think that because I think she's a fool and doesn't understand that she's bad. She's unaware of the Dunning-Kruger effect. So anyway, we're going to leave it there. Say ta-ta to Jean-Pierre. Let CNN give her a wonderful send-off. And we're going to move on to topic 2. OMG, Donald Trump bulldozed the White House. Guys, take a moment. Take a breath. I can hear you right now through the computer. I can hear you sobbing about the precious East Wing of the White House being destroyed this week. The People's House has been bulldozed, and it's terrible, and the crane was in there swinging the wrecking ball, and democracy is over. Donald Trump, dictator in chief, doing whatever he wants. I know, guys, it's terrible. And what else can you say? Donald Trump is just bulldoze the White House. The whole thing, I heard, is on the table. The West Wing, the Oval Office, everything's next. Or maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe this is just a made-up controversy that is incredibly dumb, and I'm sick of hearing people talk about it. That seems to be my opinion. I don't know how you feel about it. Again, I can hear your sobs through the computer about this East Wing you were very attached to. You can't name a room in the East Wing, but you're attached to it. I know you guys know the West Wing. It was a TV show and all. And you know the Oval Office. You maybe know the Rose Garden or the Situation Room. You might know a couple of these fancy rooms, the Lincoln Bedroom. Hey, you might know a couple names in the White House. All these rooms have names, a big fancy building. You don't know anything that's going on in the East Wing, I promise you. There's a home theater in the East Wing. The First Lady has an office in the East Wing. You know why you don't know the name of the buildings or the rooms in the East Wing? Because that building is shabby office space that's not built for a modern White House. It's bad. It's a bad thing. The East Wing hasn't been around since the beginning of the White House. It was constructed in 1902, and it was then renovated in 1942 to add a second story and make it a little bit bigger. It is shabby office space. You're not going to miss it. The White House, this Donald Trump idea to build this big, beautiful ballroom in the White House is a fantastic idea. Right now, when the White House has foreign leaders over to the White House, when the president meets with foreign leaders, they can't host large events at the White House. They set up tents on the lawn for people. This is ridiculous. The president is the most powerful man in the world, the most powerful country in the world. And we can't have people inside the president's house. Again, it's the White House, but there are dictators in South America with palaces that are as nice or bigger, nicer than the White House. Okay, it's silly. We don't need the White House to be a museum. The White House is not a museum. The White House is the president's house. And yes, there are some historic aspects of the White House that you can't change. You can't change the facade of the front of the building. It just doesn't work. You don't know what the East Wing looks like, first of all. You don't know because it's not that iconic photo you're thinking of. That's not the East Wing. The East Wing is shabby office space that is demolished. It's going to make a 90,000 square foot ballroom that seats 650 people. This is awesome. This is a great idea. Right now, you can't get more than 200 people in the East Wing. You cannot hold big functions, large functions at the White House because we don't have the space, and it's ridiculous. This is a great idea. And the best part is that you're not paying for it. As a taxpayer, you are not paying for this. Donald Trump secured the funds for this project through private donations. $300 million it's going to cost to build this ballroom. He managed to do that and save the taxpayers all the money to take care of it. By the way, I don't know of another White House renovation project that was done through private money. There could be some. I don't know. I'm just saying I don't know this. I know when Obama did his renovations, they weren't paid. He didn't pay for them. I know when they added the bowling alley and the swimming pool, like all this stuff. I don't think any president ever paid for it or secured donations. I'm pretty sure it's always been taxpayer funded. This is great. This is a fantastic deal. And I know, again, this is weird. 2 times in the same episode, I'm going to praise the Washington Post. But Donald Trump was actually praised by the Washington Post for this idea because several presidents have expressed an interest in expanding the East Wing or regretfully saying that they don't have a ballroom or some sort of a large space to accommodate big functions. They didn't necessarily say a ballroom, but they said that the White House needed to be expanded to allow them to host foreign dignitaries at the White House. So this is great. This is great. The Washington Post agrees. They said the exact same thing I'm saying. The White House is not a museum. It needs to build. It needs to evolve with the times. It needs to be a place that has relevancy in the world and makes the president look good. It makes America look good. This is the president's house. I realize our president is not a king. He's not a dictator. He's not a tyrant. But the house reflects all of us. I really do believe that. Just like I think government buildings should look nice because the government works for the people. That house is your house. It is. It is the people's house. And Donald Trump is making it nicer. He's not making it worse. Have you seen the plans for this ballroom? It's gorgeous. Donald Trump, the one thing he knows better than any other president probably is building property. He's done it all over the world. I don't know if you've ever been to one of his properties. They're very nice. So this is something that he takes serious. One of the best things I think he did in his first administration, I can't remember the name of the act off the top of my head, but it basically said that government buildings, federal buildings that were going to be built, had to be building a classical style, like a Renaissance architecture, this, whatever it's called. But no more brutalism, no more boring gray slabs of concrete and stupid glass floor to ceiling. None of that. It was going to be built in a classical architecture, which I think is awesome. You walk down the Capitol Strip there in Washington, D.C., and you look at those buildings, and you tell me that those buildings aren't more beautiful than an Office Depot, okay? You can't look at both of them and say, they're both fine. There is a limit to functionality, and sometimes it is form over functionality. Sometimes, for example, the outside of the building where I live, it's an old building. You don't walk down the streets of downtown St. Louis and you look up and you see the little details. You see the statues. You see the engraving. You see the intricate work over the doorways and the archways and the windows. And you look at these buildings that were built 50, 100 years ago, and you say, we don't build buildings like this anymore. And they look nicer. They are just a nicer quality building than the building that came 10 years ago that is right next to and just looks like a boring, replaceable, easily destructible thing that you're going to forget the second you look away. There's something about architecture which speaks to people. And when you walk around cities, you walk around Europe in these old cities, and it feels different. I don't know how to explain it. You know what I'm talking about, though. And I think this is great. I think that the White House should be beautiful, and it should be big, and we should be able to host foreign dignitaries at large functions. I think this whole thing is a great thing. And I think that if Donald Trump gets this done before the end of his presidency, I hope he gets to use it. And he doesn't get to keep the White House. This is for every future president. And I think it's a great thing. I think this is going to be one of the best things about his presidency in terms of his lasting legacy is you're going to see photos, famous photos in the future that take place in this ballroom, and people are going to talk about this. That was Donald Trump's doing. I think that's great. I think it's a great thing. Anyway, this is a non-controversy. I don't know a lot of people who are really upset about this, and they shouldn't be. Democrats are grasping at straws because they're losing so badly right now. They cannot find a thing. They cannot find a win. They're looking under every rock they can, and they just can't seem to find a win, which, by the way, leads me into our third topic because, again, this White House thing, controversy. This third topic is all about Democrats losing. The next topic is going to be called, Oh Snap, No More Snap. This make me giggle. All right, anyway. The government is still shut down. Look around. Look to your left. Look to your right. It's terrible out there. I know. The streets are anarchy. There's probably a fire right next to you as we speak. There's probably a lack of police, dogs barking in the distance, roving packs of wild animals have taken over most major cities. The federal government has been shut down. I don't know how we're still alive. I've been in my bunker for the past 4 weeks, okay? I've been eating cans of beans in the basement. This backdrop right now, it's not even my real bookcase. This is the background of my fallout shelter, waiting for the federal government to reopen so I know it's safe to step foot in the world. But other people are out there living life. And because the federal government is still shut down, all those people out there still running around, come November 1st, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, commonly known as SNAP, is going to be put on pause. They're not going to have money. They have to pause this. Now, SNAP there's a lot of things you might know. You might refer to it as EBT. You might refer to it as SNAP. You might refer to it as food stamps, whatever it is. So basically, EBT is just the card. There's a card. I can't remember what it's called, electronic something, whatever. It's the little card you get. SNAP is the actual program that puts funds on the card. You then take the card, you use the card. There's no real stamps anymore. That's what the card is for. You take your EBT card, you buy food and things at the grocery store. That's what the program is. That's what we're talking about. Well, those benefits, those food stamp programs are going to be put on pause come November 1st. Now, this is kind of a big deal. It is for a number of reasons. 42 million people in the United States get food stamps. They get SNAP benefits. That's about 1 in 8 Americans at this time who are on government assistance for just this one program. So you think about that, 1 in 8, more than that in other programs, but just this one program, 1 in 8 people. I have a lot of thoughts on this, okay? And this is a complicated one because if you're making a Venn diagram, a lot of places are overlapping on my thoughts on this and how they interact. Because you got the libertarian side of me, the conservative side of me, the compassionate side of me, and they all kind of overlap and they form this kind of interesting picture about programs like this. I think it is a good thing to have some sort of social safety net for people who really need it. So what do I mean? I mean, no one in America should starve. We shouldn't have people in the streets dying of hunger. All right? This isn't India, not in Bangladesh. We're not going to let people just die in the streets. That's a bad thing. We shouldn't be doing that in America. So let's start right there. However, 42 million people are on this program. What's up with that? That's a lot of people. Do I think that 42 million people in this country are on the brink of hunger? They're on the brink of starvation, and we need to be helping all of them all the time because everything is terrible, and we have to just... are you kidding me? This cat. You get down here. Get. She jumped right up on the desk. Oh, my God. And now you're bumping the mic. Hold on. Say hi, Winnie. Can you say hi? Winnie? No. Always. Never wants to talk in the mic. Okay, so do I think 42 million people are on the brink of starving? Should we be supporting 42 million people with food stamps? I think that sounds like a lot of people. Now, I don't know. I saw some statistics about this, which said that a lot of those people are children, which is not really children. That means they're going to families with young children. Okay, that's fine. Some of them are elderly. Some of them are Americans with disabilities. Now, disabilities to me is quite a pickle because to me, disability means you don't have legs. Disability means you have an IQ of under 80. Disability to me does not mean half of the things that people get disability for. You're too fat to work. Why? What? Why? How? Why is that a disability? It sounds like a personal choice. Again, disability to me, physical handicaps, mental handicaps, meaning IQ under 180 or under 180. Whoa, that's everybody. IQ under 80. Again, that's probably not most of the people on disability. Most of the people on disability got trench foot in 1982 and say they can't walk right. All right, whatever. That's just my personal opinion. I don't know. I think it's a good thing to have this program. 42 million sounds like a lot. Also, I think that some of the things, the way that we do this program is kind of ridiculous. This is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, meaning that, okay, we don't want you to starve. Why can the EBT card buy some of the things that you can buy? Now, I know some people are different. Some people are different than me. We had this big talk about soda. Should EBT be able to buy soda? My answer is no. My answer is no, because soda is unhealthy. And the point of that program is to supplement your nutrition, not to supplement junk food, not to supplement nonsense. And meat, vegetables, fruit, I feel like that's what EBT should buy. Boom, that's it. And the meat... not going to be ribeyes. The meat is going to be like ground beef or pork chops or some chicken breast. Chicken thighs, chicken breast. Chicken's pretty expensive. No steaks. You don't get to eat steaks on food stamps, okay? Again, I understand. People are going to be upset with this. I'm not saying that food stamps are a bad thing. I was going to call, I was very curious about this. So a lot of people may not know this. I don't care if you do. When I grew up, we did not have money. I was wondering, I don't actually know the answer to this. I was curious if my family's ever received benefits. I wouldn't be surprised if we did at certain points in our life because I know how much money my parents made. It wasn't a lot of money. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if we were. I'm not saying we were. I just don't know the answer to that. I was actually going to talk to my mom about this earlier, but I kind of forgot before I did this episode that I was going to talk about this. So I have no problem with people taking benefits. I have a problem with the way we distribute benefits, who gets them, and why we're giving them out. Because money is fungible. This is the other thing that drives me nuts, is that you know too many stories like this of somebody who is on social benefits. They're using the social safety net, which is fine. It's what it's there for. Except that then they also work, but they take cash. And they use that cash to buy other things. And they use their EBT card to buy food. And then they're taking all this money that actually they have enough money for food, but they choose to buy it on or spend it on other things. I've walked in a lot of houses, part of my job, walking in a lot of houses in a lot of rundown areas or a lot of lower income places in my life. And the one thing I'll tell you is that I don't see a lot of black and white televisions. What I see is a lot of 55-inch plasma TVs. And what I've seen in some houses, and this actually happened to me, is a stack in the corner of cans in diapers that went from the floor to the ceiling. And it turned out that the people who were involved in this, they were running some sort of a scam where they were buying or selling, I can't remember. They were buying things with EBT and then selling them half price out of the house. And so I think these people wound up getting arrested eventually. But they basically had stacks and stacks and stacks of food and diapers in their house. Okay. We all know those kind of stories. I'm not saying 42 million people are doing this. I'm saying that the system itself kind of is set up to allow for this, which is ridiculous. And this is why people don't like these kind of programs, is because you'll be in line at a store and someone will use their EBT card to buy some meat or a ribeye, which actually, again, this happened to a friend of mine. The guy in front of him used his EBT card to buy steaks and then pulled out a giant stack of cash and then used the cash to buy cigarettes over the counter. And you're standing there going, well, this is ridiculous. I'm paying for this guy to eat steaks. Meanwhile, I got 80-20 ground beef in my hand. It's kind of nonsense. Again, I'm not saying that's 42 million people. I'm just saying that those kind of stories are too common. And anecdotally, I know too many of them. So, of course, the response to this is carefully thought out. It's been moderate. It has been reserved, I guess would be the word. I have video here of just some very, very thoughtful, very constructive debate on the topic of Donald Trump and the government having to pause defined benefits for certain people. Here we go. Let's listen. Let's listen into these thoughtful comments.
Tell y'all straight up like this. I just got that text that the link is definitely cut the off for November. Y'all better stay the out of my way in these stores. I'm walking out with carts and I'm not paying for shit. Trump, if you won't, motherfuckers start looting. Oh, it's gonna happen.
Trump cutting off food stamps right before Thanksgiving, bad and all, but my people ran out of stores. With the cart full, I bet it's gonna be some turkey on my plate. Ham, mashed potatoes, greens, dressing. It's gonna all be there. Don't worry about it.
You know what? Since they want to take food stamps away, I'm going to Walmart. I'm going to rack up any damn Walmart, throw this right in the basket. I'm warming right about the move, get the my way. I'm not paying for a damn thing. Y'all got me up. I ain't getting a food stamp on EBT. Oh, watch this. Watch this. I'm about to, it's about to be some bullshit.
If you work at a grocery store and you know that the food stamps is not working in November and you see people stealing and you snitch, you deserve to die.
Y'all better lock y'all cars at night. Lock your cars. Lock your house up. If you're one of them people that just leave your car unlocked, parked in your driveway, you better lock it. With the food stamps being gone and people not gonna have people gonna eat, okay? Nobody's just gonna, this is 2025, nobody's just not gonna eat. Food stamps, I'm telling you right now, even with the government shutdown and the food stamps and stuff being gone for next month, and it's gonna affect everybody, there's about to be a lot of stuff going on.
Dear Mr. Trump, I don't care nothing about what you and your little side piece, Miss Argentina, got going on, okay? Release my food stamps. I got 8 kids to feed. And we, the people of America, the baby daddies, 7 of them, they married with their husbands, okay? So leave me alone. Release my food stamps. I need a refund immediately, okay?
Donald Trump.
Well, that last lady, of all those people, the most reasonable is certainly that last lady. She's like, I got a lot of kids to feed. And then she points to the receipts. She clearly can afford the food. I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying. Also, 8 kids, that's a lot of kids. Damn. Like, I think it's great. You want to have kids, That's awesome. But, you should probably be able to feed them. I'm just saying that's probably something you should consider in the future. One thing I will say is that of all the people I just was talking about, we kind of need to take food stamps away from, we should definitely start with these guys. Like, if you're going to threaten people, I'm going to come into Walmart and that lady's in my way, I'm going to knock her ass out. And then I'm going to walk out with a cart full of stuff. No more things for you. Government, no more. You don't get any more. Like, that's just crazy. It's crazy that people go on the internet. First of all, I'm not saying everyone has hard times. Okay? There's nothing, if you're really in a hard stretch, there's nothing shameful about having help. There's nothing bad about this idea of engaging with a social safety net if you need it. I really think that's what it's there for. There's a famous story of James Braddock. He was the heavyweight champion of the world, boxing champion. And he went on government assistance, and then when he won the heavyweight belt, he actually paid back the money that he got while he was on the government assistance. And because there was something about that, like, you helped me, here, let me pay it back. There's a different kind of thing. There's a different thing about a lack of shame in this country. If I, imagine for a second, I was on hard times. I'm on government assistance, and the government's going to pause it. I'd be like, oh my gosh, this is terrible for me. I got to figure something out. This is bad. The idea that I go on the internet and I say, the government's taking my food stamps away. I got to start stealing. I'm going to go in there at Walmart, kick over the lady, and run out with a cart full of stuff. That's how my people be. That's what that lady said. What? First of all, this is going to be controversial. If you're black, you shouldn't be doing that. Okay? And I'm saying this specifically to black people. White people steal. I am very well aware of this. White people, there's some certain segments of the white community that are terrible. If you're black, you shouldn't be doing this, especially. And let me tell you why. Because I think it's unfair that people are prejudiced and there's discrimination. I don't like any of this. I do not care for this at all. If you're black, you're doing a disservice to other black people in this country when you behave like this. Because all of a sudden now, your terrible attitude and your terrible behavior is actually leading to judgment on other black people who are totally normal human beings who just want to live and follow the law and not be terrible. But like, if you go on the internet and you're like, Donald Trump took my EBT, it's time to go steal from Walmart. I don't know. That's just a bad response. And what's funny about this too is that they were mentioning Donald Trump. Donald Trump's doing this. Donald Trump's doing this. Last I checked, I don't know. You got to engage with politics just a little bit to understand what's going on. The Democrats have shut the government down. It's not Donald Trump. The Republicans keep voting to open the government, and the Democrats keep voting to keep the government closed. Now, people don't know this because they're ignorant, but it is absolutely 100% factual that it is not the Republicans in charge of the shutdown. And enough people know this because what we've seen in the polling is that the Democrats' popularity has gone down, and the Republicans have gotten a slight bump from this government shutdown, which is amazing because government shutdowns never work for Republicans, and this one is, I don't know. We're going to keep an eye on it. Could go the other way. Again, when November rolls around in a couple days, we might be seeing just a little bit of a dip if these programs actually cut off. We'll see. I don't know. We'll keep it monitoring it. But man, just how ridiculous do you have to be to go on the internet and just say, I'm going to start stealing from Walmart? The confidence that people have, just the sheer stupidity to put something like that on the internet and think you're the good guy or you come across looking good in any way. I don't know. Anyway, we are going to leave it there for the week. As always, questions, comments, concerns, leave them down below in the comments. And maybe, if you're lucky, if it's like winning the lottery, I'll pick you out of the comments next week and you can be highlighted. The favorite comment of the week, it comes with no monetary cash value or real recognition outside of that one episode, but damn it, that one episode's a big deal. So leave your comments below. I really appreciate it. Any engagement we get is good for the algorithm. So likes and comments are a huge deal to me. I appreciate you all, and I will catch you next Friday.